Good evening and welcome to Small Groups. We're so glad that you are here and joining us tonight. I hope that it's been an impactful semester as we go through Kingdom Conversations. Tonight, we're going to have a great conversation with Sister Miranda Leonard on how we can help others during this season and time. It's so pivotal for all of us to do our best to show the love of God to other people during this really unique season. So I hope for the next few minutes you enjoy this Kingdom Conversation. So at the beginning of 2020, or really March in 2020, we obviously experienced this pandemic, and we've talked about it, just how shocking and everything kind of happened all of a sudden, and the world changed. Well, in that, one of the things that I guess maybe was a thing we were not expecting was some of the hurt that was going to come from this. Obviously, we know this was a physical virus, but at the same time, how this has emotionally affected people, and even spiritually, it's affected people. And so we've kind of had this thing going on where it's not only affected people physically, but this virus and the effects of it have gone just beyond the physical realm. So I wanted to ask you, why do you think so many people have been either hurting or wounded or fearful during this season since all of this began?
I think a big part of this is we're experiencing a collective trauma. For the first time, I read recently, for the first time since World War II, we're experiencing something that's really having an impact across the globe. So for most of us, this is the first time that we've ever experienced something that's on this type of scale. Of course, with trauma, different people react differently. We all have our own separate reactions. I truly do believe, though, that the mental health impact of this, we likely will not even realize the scope of it for a long time. Mm-hmm. For a long time. The U.S. Census Bureau has reported that in 2019, 11% of people reported symptoms of anxiety, major depression. In December 2020, 42%.
Wow.
42%. That is a significant increase.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. And for things like this, both anxiety and depression, they can both manifest as anger and irritability. And I know just personally, I've been seeing an increase in those kinds of things. I told somebody recently, just driving over the last 3 or 4 weeks, I have been honked at, yelled at more times in just the last few weeks than I've probably experienced in the last 20 years put together. Mm-hmm. And I actually saw on a group that I'm in, people were talking about that same thing, about just the irritability and those kinds of things. And, I think in some aspects, we've seen kind of we're all in this together kind of attitude. But in a lot of ways, we're very polarized in this country, even now, very polarized, extreme opinions on both sides of many issues, with the pandemic and other things. Mm-hmm. So just strong opinions, polarized opinions, a lot of things that are contributing to people hurting right now. And certainly we've probably all experienced increases in stress.
Yeah, you're right about that. It's so many of these different things have affected so many other different things about us and about personalities. And, you see these irritability things, or you see these other things that you reference that are getting brought up. And it almost is like a reflection of some wounds or things that are inside of us, stuff that we've experienced. And one of the stories that I think in the Bible kind of parallels a little bit of this and a little bit of this season, especially when it comes to wounds and issues, is the parable of the Good Samaritan. And in Luke chapter 10, we read that story. And so what I wanted to hear from you and your perspective inside of that story that Jesus tells as a parable, inside of that, what truths do you see in that story that we can pull out and that help us to help other people?
One of my very favorite parts of this story is that we know practically nothing about the man who was wounded.
Mm-hmm.
The Bible says a certain man. Now, we're given some clues that would lead us to believe it was a Jewish man, and that's it. Other than that, we know nothing about him.
Mm-hmm.
Did he contribute to putting himself in the situation that he was in? Did he make bad choices? Maybe. The road there, that road from Jerusalem to Jericho, it was winding and isolated.
Mm-hmm.
It was known for these types of incidents.
Right.
He was traveling alone, sounds like.
Mm-hmm.
He was going from Jerusalem, a city of peace and worship, to Jericho, a city of wickedness. What was he doing? Why was he going there?
Sure.
Was he the type of person that would have helped if the situation had been reversed? If it had been the Samaritan man laying there wounded, would this man have helped him? We have no idea.
Yeah.
And, Jesus was telling this story, so he could have added any details that he felt like were important for us to know. And he didn't, because
Mm-hmm.
it didn't matter.
Right.
It didn't matter.
Right.
What mattered was he was a hurting person. He was a person in need of a neighbor. And that's what the story focused on. And I love that part. The law said, love God with everything in you and love your neighbor as yourself. And in this story, Jesus completely changed the concept of who is our neighbor.
Correct. Yeah.
It was radical.
Yeah.
He was always mindful of the hurting.
Yeah.
Matthew chapter 9 says he was moved with compassion. And here in this story, he tells of this man having compassion on the man who was wounded. He was actually his enemy. The Jewish people despised Samaritans. They said they despised them, but he had compassion. So as far as what this tells us about helping people, my takeaways from this are, I've got to step away from polarized opinions and politics and hot button issues.
Mm-hmm.
What decisions that person may have made that's led to the situation that they're in. I got to step away from all of that and just pray and ask the Lord to help me see hurting people the way that he does.
Right.
The way he sees them.
Right.
And that I won't just have a moment of compassion, a feeling of compassion, but that I will be moved by it. That I will be prompted to see the pain that the person is in and minister to it. Jesus during his time of ministry on earth, he really shook things up in this area. He did some things that were unusual, and his love for people was radical, and not everybody understood it. And he said, they're going to know you. They'll know you're my disciples by the way you love.
Yeah.
And that just gets me to thinking, if the most unusual thing about me is what I wear or where I go to church or the work that I do, then I've missed it.
Yeah. Right.
The most unusual thing about me as a disciple of Jesus should be the way that I love, the way I love people.
Yeah, that's
so
true.
I want to be known for that, for having just this out of the ordinary love and compassion for people.
Ultimately, that's going to be the thing that, draws people not just to who you are, and then here's what the Word of God has done, and it's going to be that love and compassion that is who you are. That's part of your nature, and that's I love how you said that. That's the most unusual thing about you, and it's that I think that's so powerful. Now, as we're kind of transitioning towards the end, and there'll be group discussion. Maybe walk us through some practical things that we can do in order to help to show somebody love in this season right now. What are things that we can take home and do to show people some of this love of God and this love that will help them?
Well, it's rooted in our relationship with Jesus. It says, love God with everything within you, then love your neighbor as yourself. I can't do that on my own. In my fleshly person, I'm not able to have that kind of love for my neighbor, for my fellow man. So the first thing is love God with all of our heart and our soul and our strength and our mind. And pray for creative ways to reach the people around us. And he will do that. Every talent and ability that the Lord has given each of us, it's given to us for use in the kingdom.
Right.
That's the real purpose of it, is use in the kingdom. So I would say brainstorming ideas with people that we trust, praying and asking the Lord to give us creative ways to reach those around us. That's happened for me. We may think of something and think, man, I've never even heard of anybody doing this type of thing. That's okay. The Lord is the ultimate creator, and he will give us ideas. And listen to people with empathic listening skills, an open posture, really seeing the person. Even the area of neuroscience tells us so many things about the importance of someone really just feeling seen and heard, and how that can lead to emotional healing. I read the other day in some African tribes, the word for hello means I see you. And I thought, man, that's so much nicer than our, hey, how you doing? That we often don't even really expect an answer to.
Yeah.
But I see you. So really listening. In that story of the Good Samaritan, the priest and the Levite, they walked on. They noticed the man, but they walked the other direction. They didn't want to get involved. So being willing to get involved. One practical way with our families, set a goal. I'm going to show love. I'm going to do something to show love to somebody outside of my family. I love to put a time frame on things. That helps me kind of know where I'm going if I have a goal. So a goal of, I'm going to do this once a week or once a month or twice a month. And then think about the talents and the interests of yourself or the people in your home. Somebody like to cook or draw or do crafts or whatever it is, repair things. And just, again, asking the Lord for those creative ideas and ways we can use those things to show people the love of the Lord. When we minister to people, to their practical needs, showing them love, that opens the door to be able to minister to spiritual needs and fulfill the Great Commission. And that's our purpose.
Right. And everybody has something that they can do and something that they can give back and reach and connect with other people. So that's very good. And that's extremely helpful. And I really believe it'll help our small groups here tonight. I hope you enjoyed the discussion tonight that we had, and I hope you took home some practical tips with it. Right now, your group leader is going to help you go through some questions and discuss some things that you learned or maybe God is speaking with you about. So turn to your group leader and let's have a great discussion.